Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Alpharetta City Council meeting and public hearing for July 24th, 2023. It's 6:30, so we'll go ahead and begin the meeting. I'll note for the record that all members of council are present and accounted for. I wanted to announce a couple of changes to tonight's agenda in case you're here for these items. First item is CLUP 23-02, Z-23-06, V-23-07, North Main Street Townhomes. That item has been deferred. That will be held on August 21st, 2023 at that City Council meeting. And the other item that will not be 07, that has also been deferred, and that's will also be heard on August 21st rather than tonight. So if you were here for those items, I apologize for the inconvenience, but you can come back in a few weeks and we'll be hearing them. As always, we begin our meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you're able, please stand and join us. So we'll begin tonight's meeting with a presentation and a proclamation, and that is the proclamation for Muslim American Heritage Month. So if the members or representatives of the Voices of Muslims would like to meet me up front, please do so. Thank you, sir.
Really appreciate that.
Do you want all the attendees to come here?
Anyone you want to bring up? This is your proclamation.
Everybody come up. Everybody, please. Everybody. And you may want to come forward so we can have people in the back.
Yeah, sure.
Dan, yeah, please come. There you go. Come, everybody come. Everybody. Please. Maybe one step. So that everybody come. Everybody, please. Yes. Get up.
I would like you to go ahead first, and then I'll talk.
Okay. That's great.
Great job.
So I am honored on behalf of the City of Alpharetta and the Mayor and City Council, a proclamation by the Mayor and City Council of the City of Alpharetta, Georgia, Muslim American Heritage Month. Whereas the City of Alpharetta takes great pride in the varied religious and cultural traditions of its residents and seeks to afford all people in Alpharetta the opportunity to better understand, recognize, and appreciate the rich histories, cultures, significant contributions, and shared principles of Muslim Americans. And whereas Muslim Americans contribute significantly to charitable organizations that help people from all faiths in the United States and around the world by feeding the hungry, providing recuperation efforts following natural disasters, and providing medical assistance, family services, scholastic supplies, and before and after school programs. And whereas Muslim Americans have contributed to every part of the economy, culture, education, and identity of Georgia and the United States in making advancements in architecture, arts, business, culture, diplomacy, government, law, medicine, the military, national security, religion, and sports. And whereas there is a need for public education awareness, discourse, and policies that are culturally competent when describing, discussing, or addressing the impacts of being Muslim America. And whereas officials and departments of state county, and municipal governments, boards of education, elementary and secondary schools, colleges and universities, businesses, and all citizens are encouraged to participate in appropriate ceremonies, programs, and activities that commemorate and honor the contributions of Muslim Americans throughout each July during Muslim American Heritage Month. Now, therefore, we, the Mayor and City Council of the City of Alpharetta, Georgia, do recognize the month of July 2023 as Muslim American Heritage Month. So proclaimed this 24th day of July, 2023, by the Mayor and City Council of the City of Alpharetta, Georgia. Congratulations. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, yeah. I'll take it.
Chairman of the board of Islamic Center of North, the right here.
He has come to our center. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So I'll just do. You guys want to sit? Yeah.
we'll sit
Yeah, let's sit, and then everybody settles down, and then I can. All right. Mr. Mayor Gilvin, council members, and fellow citizens, Assalamu alaikum means peace be on you. Voices of Muslim Organization, along with our local Muslim community and esteemed masjid imams, Imam Ahmad and Imam Asad, and the masjid board members in attendance, thank you. We thank you from all the citizens of Alpharetta. Together, let us embark on this journey of celebration, enlightenment, and unity, honoring the contributions of Muslims working towards a more inclusive and harmonious society. We thank the city of Alpharetta for this proclamation, which symbolizes city's commitment to inclusivity and unity. Voices of Muslim is honored to have proclamations from 25 cities and 6 counties. So we are doing big things. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor again, council members, city managers, and city clerks. Lauren has been great help since I was talking to her. Thank you, Lauren. May this be a month and time of reflection, appreciation, and unity as we commemorate Muslim Heritage Month in the city of Alpharetta. Thank you.
So we'll move on to our public hearing portion of tonight's meeting. As I mentioned earlier, the first item that may be on your printed agenda has been deferred until August 21st. So the first item we'll be discussing this evening is Z-23-07/V-23-12 Davis Drive Track, TPG. Mr. Woodman, I believe you have public, I believe you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The first item before you is a request from the Providence Group. It's a request for rezoning and variances to allow for the construction of 85 for-sale townhomes. And that's on 8.59 acres. It's in the North Point overlay. Proposed density is 9.9 dwelling units per acre. There's a rezoning requested from LI Light Industrial to R10M, which is a for rent and for sale residential dwelling zoning district. And then there are variances to reduce the minimum lot width, increase maximum front setback, amend block requirements, reduce landscape strips and undisturbed buffers, allow required parking to be uncovered, and allow encroachment into the critical root zone of some trees within the Georgia 400 tree protection zone. I do have the location map on the overhead. Property is located at 0 Davis Drive, on the south side of Davis Drive, just south of West Side Parkway. This is the subject property. It is an undeveloped property, long rectangular shape, includes the McGinnis Family Cemetery on the north end of the property, closest to Topgolf. This property was approved a couple years ago for 159 assisted living facility units. And a portion of the property was cleared and graded. About the middle section of the property was cleared and graded with the construction of Davis Drive extension. And that clearing and grading was for a stormwater pond. Mentioned the variances. The applicant states the following hardships for their variance: the unusual shape of the property. There are 2 road frontages, so the road frontage of Davis Drive as well as Georgia 400, and then of course the cemetery on the site. Applicant is asking to reduce the minimum lot width of the townhomes, some of the townhomes, from 20 feet to 16 feet. On the 16-foot wide townhome units, they are also asking to allow 1 parking space in the garage as well as 1 on the driveway. They're asking to increase the maximum building setback along Davis Drive. So we have a minimum and a maximum in the North Point overlay. So they're asking to allow a maximum setback along Davis Drive of 30 feet instead of 10 feet. They're also asking to eliminate block requirements. They cannot connect, or they would not want to connect the residential development into commercial development to the north and south. So they're asking for relief from that section of the code, as well as there are also a couple locations where the landscape strip along this parallel street here tapers down to 5 feet. So they have the 10-foot required landscape strip along that street, except for in this location and this location. Because this is a for-sale development adjacent to commercial development, there is a requirement for a 50-foot undisturbed buffer on this property here and here. They're asking for some relief to reduce that undisturbed buffer. And then there are 2 retaining walls, so shown here along the edge of the Georgia 400 tree buffer, as well as here. And that retaining wall will impact the structural root plate of some pines located within this buffer. And I'll call that we do have a condition that deals with that particular variance, and I'll call that to your attention when we get to the conditions. This is the applicant's site plan. Again, 85 for-sale townhome developments. New access proposed from Davis Drive, the new extension of Davis Drive. With regard to the 16 and 20-foot townhome units, there will be the applicant proposes a total of 50 of the units to be 16-foot wide and 35 to be 20-foot wide. With the Davis Drive extension that was done, completed by the North Fulton CID, they did install 8-foot sidewalks along the frontage of this property. The 16-foot wide townhomes on this site plan would have, as I mentioned, the 1 car in the garage, 1 on the driveway. The 20-foot wide would have 2 cars in the garage and 2 cars on the driveway. There are an additional 27 guest parking spaces shown on the site plan in this location, here and here. The applicant indicated on the site plan approximately 18% open space. However, we did note that there were several areas that they did not include in their calculation. So their site plan calls out about 1.5 acres of open space. We think that it's more than that, which represents 18% open space. That does exceed the minimum requirement in the North Point overlay. There is civic space that's shown up on the north end of the property, and again, that cemetery is located approximately at this location. And then there's amenity space shown at this location right here. We did, with the approval of the assisted living facility on this property, we did secure an easement for a future extension of the Alpha Loop through the tree buffer, so we have already acquired that from the current property owner. There were 3 specimen trees identified in the applicant's report. However, those are tulip poplars. Those poplars do not do well with construction activities. And so the applicant did offer as a alternative when they presented before Planning Commission to saving 2 of the tulip poplars to provide 10 to 12 inch signature trees, 4 of those throughout the development. And Planning Commission did accept that change from the applicant. As I mentioned, the impacted pines along the area where the retaining wall is located here. We do have in the conditions, we are recommending in the conditions that those pines be replaced with evergreen trees. We actually believe that that will provide a better screen for this development from 400. Pines, their foliage is so far up that it doesn't provide a screen at the lower levels, and we believe the evergreen trees will do that. Stormwater is shown as underground at this location and here. And these are proposed as a combination of 2 and 3 bedroom units, ranging in size from just under 1,700 square feet to about 2,200 square feet. 2-story over basement as well as 3-story on slab. So here, there's your 2-story. They're depicting primarily brick in this elevation, so there's brick here as well as in the upper floors. There are some vertical siding accents in these 2 locations. This style does represent a more contemporary style, which is a style that is allowed within the North Point overlay. Of course, in the North Point overlay, we do have eco-district requirements. The applicant is identifying building energy efficiency, water efficiency, bicycle amenities, as well as ride-sharing spaces to meet their minimum requirement of eco-district points. Of course, we reviewed the applicant's requests against the North Point overlay vision. We believe this will add to the walkability, the mix of uses that we desire within the North Point overlay. Of course, bringing the residential to this particular area is going to help bring people closer to where they're working and shopping. And we believe that changing from the assisted living to the single-family residential, we believe this would increase or have less impact on public safety. We've noted in the past that public safety has gotten quite a few calls at the assisted living facility. So that change of use would result in less impact on public safety. And we do think that the property does have some hardships, including the unusual shape of the property, the road frontages, and the cemetery that do support the applicant's requested variances. The applicant did provide a citizen participation plan. There were no comments received by the applicant. And we did show this to the public at the June 14th Community Zoning Information Meeting. There was 1 public comment on the sign-in sheet in support of the request. Of course, this item went to the Planning Commission on July 13th. There were no public comments at Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission did recommend unanimous approval of the request. And I will go through the conditions that Planning Commission recommended to City Council. Condition 1 is the site plan specific condition, rezoning the property to R10M and tying it to the Travis Pruitt and Associates site plan dated 7/12/23. Condition 2, maximum density shall be 9.9 dwelling units per acre. Condition 3, ties the architecture and materials to the renderings that I presented. Condition 4, permitted uses on the property shall be limited to for sale townhomes only. 5, no more than 50 townhome units shall have a 16-foot lot width. 6, minimum 20-foot setback and maximum 30-foot setback shall be provided along Davis Drive. Condition 7, developer shall provide a minimum 20-foot planted buffer along the side property lines with the following exceptions. On the property line shared with Papados, let me bring that site plan back up. So this is the property line that would abut Papados here. So on the property line shared with Papados, the street shall be permitted to encroach as generally depicted on the site plan prepared by Travis Pruitt dated 7/12/23. On the north property line, so abutting the abutting Topgolf, 20-foot planted buffer shall not be required in the tree save area. So there is a tree save area here located near the cemetery. Condition 8 ties the eco-district measures to the applicant's letter of intent to revise May 17, 2023. Condition 9, developer shall enhance project entrance with a decorative planted median as well as decorative hardscape, landscape, and North Point Eco-District Monument. Cultural Arts Commission shall approve the Eco-District Monument and staff shall approve the hardscape and landscape. Hardscape, landscape, and monument shall be maintained by the HOA. Condition 10 addresses the open space and ties it to the submitted site plan. Does require HOA responsibility for maintenance of those areas. Condition 11, stormwater management facility shall be improved as a natural appearance. Is approved by staff. Developer shall accommodate existing stormwater capacity into the design of the proposed development. Basically, there's stormwater capacity on the site with the existing stormwater pond. For the construction of Davis Drive, the applicant has to take that capacity into their design. Condition 12, privacy fences and unfinished wood decks shall not be visible from the public right-of-way. 13, townhomes shall have connectivity to the public sidewalk system. 14, project entrance and new street shall be improved as generally depicted on the site plan prepared by Travis Pruitt and Associates, dated 7/12/23, is approved by staff. New street parallel to Davis Drive shall require a planter, sidewalk, and landscape strip on the south side of the street, only as generally depicted on the site plan by Travis Pruitt, dated 7/12/23. Decorative pedestrian lighting shall be required throughout the development. Internal streets shall be private and maintained by the HOA. Condition 15, developer shall provide a minimum 6-foot trail through the civic space on the north end of the site. At a minimum, trail shall provide a connection between the sidewalk on Davis Drive and the cemetery and shall include lighting and benches as approved by staff. Condition 16, developer shall save trees in the tree save area depicted on the site plan prepared by Travis Pruitt and Associates, dated 7/12/23. 17, in lieu of saving trees 292 and 293, those were the two tulip poplars that were located in this general vicinity. So in lieu of saving those, developer shall plant 4 signature trees of 10 to 12-inch caliper as situated by a landscape architect for maximum community benefit and approved by staff. Condition 18 addresses the impacts to the trees in the Georgia 400 buffer and does require replacement plantings of evergreen trees as approved by staff. Condition 19 limits rental of the residential units to no more than 10%. And then condition 20 was added by Planning Commission. This was a condition that was on the previous approval on this site for the assisted living facility. And I do have a minor change to this condition. I'll read through that and note the change. 20, the applicant shall work with the Alpharetta Historical Society to determine the McGinnis Cemetery improvements that, and it says may, and I had a request from a council member and the applicant has agreed to these changes. to change may to shall. So cemetery improvements that shall include new ornamental fencing, landscape, strike, repair of headstones, and then it goes on to say, and signage. And then at the end of that sentence, we would add, and may include repair of headstones. So I'm going to go ahead and read that sentence one more time as we are proposing to amend it. So again, condition number 20, the applicant shall work with the Alpharetta Historical Society to determine the McGinnis Cemetery improvements that shall include new ornamental fencing, landscape, and signage, and may include repair of headstones. Sufficient landscape screening shall be provided between the new site and the cemetery with final approval by staff. The applicant was just a little concerned about a requirement, changing that to shall, as it related to repairing headstones, as that will likely require notification to the families. And that concludes the presentation. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Thank you, Mr. Wooden. Any questions? Councilman Mitchell.
Thank you. I was the one who had asked that that be included in the original one for the family. And I also had asked that it be iron because the original cemetery would have had an iron one and not a ornamental, the name fails me, aluminum fencing. It would have had a nice iron one around it. It's not that big of a cemetery, so I'd like to include the ornamental iron fencing too.
I did not present the iron portion of that to the applicant, so we'll need to bring that up to them.
I can ask him about that tonight. Okay, he's given me a thumbs up, so, all right, thank you.
Councilman Hypes.
Mr. Woodman, do we know what the minimum buffer will be along 400 before the DOT decides to install sound barriers?
So they're showing 60 feet, and we did ask the applicant to show, because this is the buffer that's on an on-ramp, so that is the minimum that is required by our code, and they are showing the full 60 feet remaining after GDOT's project here.
And you're a little bit ahead of me. I was wondering if we have anything that's reliable from the DOT as to what they intend to do in terms of widening with that exit ramp there at Mansell Road. Do we know what they're going to do?
So we did ask the applicant to show the most up-to-date impacts from the GDOT project on this plan, and they're showing no impacts. So it's our understanding that that is what is proposed and that there's not impacts to this property.
So to answer, I'm going to ask my question a few different ways because I'm sensitive about these sound barriers going up and down 400 when they're close in proximity to a residential development on the other side. And is there anything about this development, to our knowledge, that would cause the DOT on 400 to want to put a sound barrier there where they would not otherwise put one?
I'm not aware that of GDOT's plans to put sound barriers adjacent to this property. I have not seen a plan for that.
So between the boundary line of the property and the ramp there, you're saying that's the minimum 60 feet?
Yes, so where they're showing trees here, that is a 60-foot wide swath through there.
And that's what our code...
That is what our code requires, where the buffer is adjacent to an on-ramp or off-ramp.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Sisevich, since that's been brought up, do you have anything to add to that discussion?
The Georgia 400 Express Lanes project is not a design, bid, build project. It is a design, build project. So what we have right now is our best information. is there most likely will be sound barriers on both sides of Georgia 400 along the whole entire corridor. Now, that can be modified based off of the federal sound requirements, based off the final design that the awarding design build firm designs to. So the design is not finalized. That's the ultimate challenge we have right now. It's just a conceptual framework for the 3 design teams to present their proposal to GDOT.
So just to follow up on that, do you know whether GDOT has acquired all of the right-of-way in this particular area that they require?
I do not know if they, in this particular area, I do know that they are significantly through the process,
Right.
like 90+%.
Okay, thank you. Did you say you had another question?
Yeah, I want to ask Director Pete sort of the same question I asked Mr. Goodman and Woodman, pardon me. And that is, you said they're going to build sound barriers up and down 400, to your knowledge. What I'm interested in is cause and effect. If a variance is granted to, with respect to where the property is being situated, et cetera, will that precipitate or cause the sound barrier to go in there to your knowledge? Are those trees coming out of there,
There's a lot of trees coming down.
whether the thing's built or not?
Well, I have a feeling,
Not the thing, I'm so sorry, the project.
yeah, I have a feeling a lot of the trees will come down because of, they will meet the requirements through the federal design standards of having a sound barrier wall.
Yeah, and I immediately recognize the need for a sound barrier if there's residential on the other side of where the barrier would go. If there's no residential there, what I'm trying to get at is, would there be a sound barrier there? If you know.
If it's in the queue, they like to, because what happens is then they're required when they come back. So if it does get rezoned out to a residential 5, 10, 15 years down the road, then there's a request for a sound barrier, and it's after the fact. So that's why I like to try to keep it consistent.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions from staff? Thank you, gentlemen.
Yes, always.
Would the applicant like to come forward?
Members of the council, my name's Kirk Feldstuhl. I work with Kathy Zickert. And if you could give us a technology break, just a couple seconds here. There's just a couple of slides that we want to show you. And while we're doing that, I did want to make clear, I guess, first of all, we can't read GDOT's mind on some of this stuff, but the property is already authorized for a senior living facility, and so just as that sort of helps with your thought process. Okay, so we've got it plugged in. We have no idea what to do after that.
Just waiting for it to not be your
Oh, thank you. All right, good. And we know that the property, and I think it's helpful to see where the property lies to the west along Georgia 400, and you can see where it is next to the exit ramp on the south as you're going south on Georgia 400, and that does establish what your code requirement is for the buffered areas. I think Michael does such a great job of explaining the presentations to you. I could probably stop right now. So I'm not gonna cover it in too much detail. The property is in between the Topgolf and the Pappadeaux on Davis Drive. It's an elongated shape, and in this section of the property, it's got a private cemetery, which does impact the property, and along with its elongated nature and then its proximity between two roads is the major need for some of the variances. zoning request, as you know, is to R10, R10M conditional, and it is ultimately going to be 85 for-sale townhomes on with 9.9 units per acre. And as Michael had said, 50 of those townhomes will be 16-foot widths. Part of the important part of the zoning here is it is in the North Point overlay. It's between commercial uses. What the North Point overlay wants to do is to attract a mix of uses. And as you know, that we've got Topgolf, we got Papados. There are multiple other mixes of uses, including Killer Creek, the On the Border. There's a Main Event Entertainment, and then there's a Sanctuary Office Park nearby. The piece that needs to be added is a residential piece to help with that kind of mixed use that the North Point overlay is looking for. I'm gonna see if I can page down here a little bit. And so this is the site plan, which Michael has already talked to you about. And again, once again, the cemetery is over here. The tree save area is in this area, the upper right-hand portion. And what I think is probably most important to understand is that there's been a lot of discussion back and forth with the staff about the conditions, very collaborative. We've ended up with 20 conditions, and I wanted to mention just a few of those. We have agreed to all of these conditions, whether they were with the planning staff or with the planning commission. And I think what was added, for example, as it relates to condition number 10, where it relates to open space, is an agreement to including hardscapes and seating and landscaping in the area that the homeowners association will maintain that. Condition 11 related to the stormwater management. We've got underground stormwater detention here in this open space, and then towards the rear of the property, again in the upper right-hand side. A fair amount of the discussion was about the trees. We've got a well-established, a great tree save area here. And condition number 17 relates to the poplar trees that Michael was talking about, which would be over the underground detention facility. And in talking with both our clients and with the council and with the planning commission, what we decided to do was really go above what was required in terms of removing the poplars. What was suggested by the planning staff, for example, was to replace the trees with 4-inch caliper trees, and we agreed to do. We thought it would be better to go up to 10-inch, which, as you know, is a pretty considerable investment. But it also, I think, will enhance the property. At the time that it's appropriate, we'll work with the staff to put them in places that we can, both the community and the development itself can take advantage of that. And then I think the part that, once again, had a lot of discussion with the Planning Commission was the private cemetery. And I think Providence has worked with private cemeteries before. They're very comfortable doing it. I think but we have to balance that sort of against the private nature of some of the headstones and things like that we don't really have the ability to go in and change those things without permission. But they want the private cemetery to look good, look like an amenity, something that the community can be proud of, and the development. So the conditions that have been proposed by the Planning Commission and then updated by the council, we're happy to agree with. And I think with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Go
we have any questions from council? Councilman Heights?
Appreciate your presentation. I see in the packet these are going to be roughly 1,700 to 2,200 square feet. Is there a particular segment of the market from a price perspective that this would serve the residents of Alpharetta?
Yeah, so we've talked a little bit about that. Mike can come up if, and well, or Clint, if we need to. In fact, this is Clint Walters, if it's okay to kind of address that.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Clint Walters with the Providence Group. Yes, sir. So we are proposing 16 and 20-foot units. Like Michael said, from roughly 1,700 feet to 2,200 feet. One thing that's neat about these units that Warren touched on in the Planning Commission is these units are mixed within the same building. So it's not like we've got a building of 16s and a building of 20. They're mixed in the same building, so that provides a variety that's good for sales and good for the community. We would anticipate the smaller units, the 16-footers, to start at probably $550 and go up to $580, and the 20-footers to be more like $650. In today's dollars, who knows? A year and a half from now, we start building them, but there is a pretty significant spread between them. And also, these smaller units allow us to hit a different price point that, while you can't say it's affordable, it's expensive as everything is in our world today, but it is less expensive than the Providence Group's other townhouse products in Alpharetta.
Any other questions from council? Councilman Binder?
Just point of process, will we have the ability to go back to questions of staff before it goes to comment?
If needed, sure. Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you, gentlemen.
Good, thank you.
Mr. Binder, do you have an opportunity to ask more questions?
Thanks. Mr. Woodman, I had Mr. Drinkard pull up the maps. I'm just, if there's one thing I've learned, it's setting precedent, knowingly or unknowingly, for future applicants to say, hey, I like that idea. The variants are going into the buffer. I saw that layout from Google Maps that the applicant gave us, but I went from Windward down to Mansell, and it looks pretty uniform. That the, James, can you have it kind of zoom in from Windward to go all the way down to where they are? But have we given any of those? Oh, I gotcha. You get my point, though. The variance looks pretty uniform. I mean, the setback looks pretty uniform. So, what kind of concerns do you have or thought about when setting that precedent?
Yeah, we were concerned about the impact to the tree buffer as well. We did just recently have the Midgard at Old Milton Parkway. So this is similar to their request. So there were impacts to the tree buffer, but the buffer is not actually being reduced necessarily. So there are a couple trees that were impacted in that particular case.
Correct.
They have to replant. So there's still going to be a 60-foot wide buffer through there. It's just that those two retaining walls will impact some of the existing pine trees within the buffer, that to the point that it will impact their structural root plate, so they'll need to be removed. And then they would be replaced with evergreen trees. So they would replant the area where they removed a line of pine trees.
So that buffer I see right now going up, it's going to be pretty uniform with?
The width of the buffer will remain uniform.
What other areas that are either looked for mixed use or residential are there along this 400 corridor right now? I know there's always MARTA knocking on our door for their mixed use near Windward, but
Avalon is immediately adjacent to Georgia 400 for a mixed-use development.
Ones that haven't been built yet or undeveloped land. Looking for the light industrial to real estate.
I can't think of any residential development that's been approved but undeveloped along 400. Is that what you're asking?
Councilmember Merkel brought up a good point. The one behind Best Buy that we saw, I don't know, within a year or so
TPA.
ago. Yep.
Lakeview Park is one that's under construction that has mixed use. And Continuum is not immediately, well, actually it is immediately adjacent to 400. I forgot about that one.
Okay. Thank you, sir. That's all I got, Mr. Gilman.
Any other questions for staff? Thank you, sir. Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards on this item?
We do not, Mr. Mayor.
However, if anyone would like to come forward and speak about this, now's your opportunity. Seeing none, we will close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, I'd offer a motion tonight to approve item Z-23-07/V-23-14, Davis Drive track. The Providence Group is presented tonight with the 20 conditions, and I will reference some changes to condition number 20. It shall read, the applicant shall work with the Alpharetta Historical Society to determine the McGinnis Cemetery improvements that shall include a new ornamental iron fencing, landscaping, signage, and may include repair of headstones. Sufficient landscape screening shall be provided between the new site and the cemetery with approval by staff.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion to approve as outlined by Mayor Pro Tem Merkel and seconded by Councilman Mitchell. Any discussion? Councilman Heights? Pardon? Mayor Pro Tem.
No, I just think it's a creative idea. It is a part of the city that teeters on almost industrial mixed with play. You know, you got live, work, play is a desire. Live is kind of missing down there. I think we also have a little bit of crime in that area because it's not activated. There isn't much going on. It's really kind of dark over there. And with the extension of Davis Drive offering the opportunity to put this in there, I want to commend somebody for figuring out a creative use for it. So I appreciate it.
Councilman Heights.
I have similar feelings that Mayor Pro Tem expressed, but some reservations. We've had similar situations come along, and I've had reservations about those projects. Well, I do believe activating some residential in that area would be good for the city. I commend anybody who comes along and will try to bring housing that is within reach of a segment of our society here that can't afford other parts of Alpharetta. So that was important to me. And the day I thought 550 might be a starter home, I would have thought that person was a king or a queen. But that's the world we live in now, and that's we got to make things like that available. My reservation is the 50 homes that we're reducing from 20 feet to 16 feet. That's 4 foot per home times 50 homes. That's 200 feet. That's basically adding 10 additional homes to the project, and I have reservations about that. It's not insurmountable for me because I think if we're going to build housing projects, residential projects that are close to 400 with easy access to 400, it certainly ameliorates any of the traffic concerns because you're immediately adjacent to 400. But the idea that we're just getting a particular zoning and then seeking a variance to get more in there is the thing that gave me pause. And I just wanted to express that. It's important to me to be consistent in how I approach these applications, and there's been other applications who have sought a rezoning and then a variance to reduce the size of the units increase the number of units. And I've not seen those as favorably as I see this, but I think you are filling a need for that part of town and that close to 400. So those are my comments, Mr. Mayor, that I support the project with some reservations.
Any other comments from council? I'll just note that I do share some of those concerns. I think adding residential there makes sense. I love the idea that it's owner occupied. Not a huge fan of that particular location, but at that price point, I'm even more concerned because I don't know that that really addresses a need that we've got in Alpharetta. And I hope we'll start exploring opportunities to use more efficient construction techniques in certain locations, because 550 is not a starter home for most of the people in North Fulton. I know there's a lot of people that can't afford it, but that's not a starter home for most of them. So that being said, all those in favor of the motion as outlined by Mayor Pro Tem Merkel, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote no. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, and that is CU-23-03 Branded Med RX/4150 Old Milton Parkway. Mr. Woodman, you once again have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The next item before you is a request from Branded Med RX. They're requesting a conditional use to operate a drugstore pharmacy in a 1,900 square foot suite in the shops at Old Milton Center. Branded Med RX is a retail pharmacy, and I do have the overhead location map on the overhead. Subject property is located at 4150 Old Milton Parkway, Suites 113 and 114. Property is zoned CUP, Community Unit Planned. It is subject to the Park Bridge Master Plan, and that is pods B and C of that master plan. Those pods do allow a drugstore pharmacy with approval of a conditional use. The subject property, shops at Old Milton Old Milton Center, is 5.1 acres. It was developed in 2007. It's 1- and 2-story building, about 50,000 square feet. Businesses in the center include the Jerusalem Bakery, Spices Hut, the FedEx office, print and ship center, as well as a previous conditional use applicant, Reserve 116 event venue. You heard that, considered that request a couple years ago. There are, let me get site plan. Is it? This is the site plan for the center. There are 242 parking spaces on the property. So this is the 2-story building, and then you have the wings on each side. Those are 1-story portions of the building. Most of the parking is between the building and Old Milton Parkway, and then there's some additional parking at the rear of the building. The applicant's business, Branded Med RX, is a small mom and pop retail pharmacy. They intend to provide a delivery service through a third-party vendor. They mentioned Easy Scripts as the third-party vendor. The applicant is here this evening and can explain the differences between the different pharmacy types. So the state does have requires a certificate from the State Pharmacy Board, and those requirements are different for a retail pharmacy than an independent or a specialty pharmacy or a compounding pharmacy. But again, the applicant is prepared to explain to you the difference of those. The applicant is a business partner in this particular endeavor, and his partner is a pharmacist with over 15 years' experience. The delivery portion of the business will represent approximately 5 to 10% of the business. And the applicant, let's see, here is the floor plan of the buildings on the site. And again, they are in the western wing of this building, and they're in the one-story portion of the building. This is suites 113 and 114, so just behind the FedEx office and print shop. The applicant has requested hours of operation of Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and they anticipate 2 employees at this location. We did look at the traffic that would be generated for the use. It appears that they would generate approximately 15 a.m. peak hour trips and 16 p.m. peak hour trips. Of course, review the requests against the criteria for a conditional use. The property is surrounded primarily by non-residential uses, and we do not believe that the proposal would have any significant impacts to those surrounding properties. We also believe that there is sufficient parking available for the existing uses as well as this proposed business. This was shown to the public on the June 14th Community Zoning Information Meeting, and there was 1 public comment in support. This item was also presented to Planning Commission on July 13th. There were no public comments at Planning Commission, and Planning Commission did recommend unanimous approval of the applicant's request, subject to 7 conditions, and I'll go through those. Condition 1, drugstore pharmacy shall be added as a conditional use at 4150 Old Milton Parkway, Suite 113 and 114, and limited to no more than 1,900 square feet. 2, conditional use approval shall be limited to branded Med RX. No additional drugstore pharmacy use or subleasing shall be permitted within the approved space. 3, drugstore pharmacy shall be limited to a retail pharmacy, including in-store sales and deliveries. There shall be no urgent care or pain management clinic in the leased space, and there shall be no tobacco products. We just wanted to clarify on the use, those last 2 sentences, just make sure that it was limited to a drugstore pharmacy only. We've seen mom and pop type pharmacies that have kind of converted more, have a convenience store kind of aspect to them. So again, that last sentence was added in there regarding the tobacco products, just to make sure that we had protections. Condition 4, hours of operation shall be limited to Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. 5, pharmacy delivery vehicles shall not be parked overnight in the parking lot facing Old Milton Parkway. We just wanted to make sure the applicant is going to work through a third-party vendor, so the delivery vehicle should not be parked at the site and left overnight. But just in case the drugstore pharmacy was intended to do their own delivery service in the future, we would just expect that those delivery vehicles be parked behind the building so they're not visible from the street. Condition 6, business shall be limited to no more than 1 wall sign with sign copy limited to either white or anodized bronze. Wall sign shall not have an internally lit face, and any illumination shall be white. We put that condition in there. We do not allow an internally lit sign face in the downtown. I believe it's next month, we have scheduled to bring a variety of UDC changes forward to council, and one of those will be prohibiting internally lit face signs throughout the city. So that's why we have that condition. Condition 7, window signage shall be limited to no more than 5% of the total window area. Our code allows up to 20%. So we thought that we should limit the window signage at this location. That concludes the presentation. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Any questions for staff? Councilman Will.
Michael, this might be actually better for the applicant, but did they request 9 to 5 Monday through Saturday, or did we put that requirement in there?
That was the applicant's request.
All right, I'll save my questions for the applicant. Thank you.
Councilman Mitchell.
What is the chemical guy next door there?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Right next door to them, it's called the chemical guy or guys in one of your layouts. The chemical guys, what is that?
I don't know that that business is even located. I'm not sure. I don't know that this is probably a floor plan that was given to the applicant and submitted to us. So they probably received this from the leasing at the center. The applicant possibly may know. I will try to look into it real quick.
I was just wondering because if it's pool chemicals or is it something that's going to, be compatible with human pharmaceuticals?
If I could intercede, Google says that it's an automotive products, like for self-cleaning cars and polishing and waxing and things like that, but
I see.
take that for what it's worth. That's not-
Okay. All right. And so with, you said it's a traditional drugstore type thing, so you can get Band-Aids and things like that in there.
That probably would be best answered by the applicant. I'm not 100% on that.
Okay.
But I do know that they do include medical supplies in addition to drugs.
Okay. Thank you. I'll ask them. I appreciate it.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Woodman. If the applicant would like to come forward, now's your opportunity.
Good evening. My name is Vera Hamana, and this is my partner, Javier Vacaluna. We are interested in putting Branded Med RX into 4150 Old Milton Parkway. It was brought to our attention that people may not understand the difference in between the different types of pharmacies that are out there. So when you have, for instance, you have your Walgreens, your CVS, your Publix, those are all large corporate chain pharmacies. Independent pharmacies, independent retail pharmacies work a little differently than those large chain pharmacies. So when you have an independent pharmacy, we actually have the time to work with the patients and work on compliance in their health care. The chain corporations, they are focused on generating as many scripts as possible in as little amount of time, just kind of like spitting them out as quickly as they can without taking that little extra step to really understand the needs of the patients. So that's something that's really big in what we do that sets us apart. We have savings that we can do that we can pass on also to the patients. General corporation pharmacies, chain pharmacies, they have set pricings. They go by those pricings. They're always looking for certain goals. We are interested in working to make sure that we can work with the patient, with the physician, in order to get that patient that medication many times at a much better price than that you can get in another general chain pharmacy. Because of the way we're structured, we're allowed to personalize that. If something comes in, for instance, and let's say a medication is denied by insurance, we will take that time right then and there to reach out to the physician and see what else can be done in order for them to be able to continue on with their health care without the ball being dropped. And half the time the physician doesn't even know that the patient isn't on their medication and couldn't get that. So we like to be able to give working with the patients and the physicians another choice. Many times patients don't even know they have a choice. So that is something that in general we would love to continue to educate this community and be able to keep people in compliance with their medications and continue to support the community.
Is that all you had to say?
That, we can answer any questions if you have any questions.
Did you happen to know what the chemical guys are?
Yes.
If you want to share that
The
with Councilman
guys,
Mitchell,
they
he
kind
might
of work
appreciate.
with detailing, car detailing.
I
all the
was
different.
pretty shocked actually that they do have that type of care for specialty cars. You know, like you're talking about $100,000 cars that you can come in
He's got
and
shelves.
get some cleaning that you probably won't be able to get in any other place. So they do. They
So
do a good
Google
job.
was right.
Google was
Yeah,
right.
it
yes.
was right. So we're pretty familiar. The other thing, I'm glad you Google it because you know it helps to help the every average consumer or patient who take medication. So and she addressed that, you know, and in this area what we're looking at to open the pharmacy, you really don't have an independent pharmacy in Alpharetta. So it's an independent pharmacy or community pharmacy. So you have about 4 types of pharmacy, if you will. Okay, you have your community pharmacy or independent pharmacy, you have your chain pharmacy, you have your specialty pharmacy, and you have your compounding. Each one of these have obviously a play on helping patients stay in compliance with their medication and provide some benefits for the patient. We're coming in specifically to help that patient type, not only from a cost perspective, but also from a manage of their medication perspective is day and night. We have a saying for some of the areas that we work, and we're like, if we cannot help you, nobody else will. So if you have a patient that taking a particular medication that your physician want you to be in it, for you, the likelihood for you to get it without having an independent pharmacy is very low, unless you have an amazing insurance and you're willing to pay over $500 on medication. But the way we work is a little bit different. We do take the time to apply those coupons where you can actually pay a lower copay that the pharmaceutical actually offering to bring that cost down for the patient. So this is where we come in and we work within the community.
Most of the time, people don't even know those exist. They only know if the doctor has them walking out with a coupon. So we take that extra step right away because we do check to see what's out there and what's the best option for the patient.
And that goes even for generic. So most of us at one point we're taking a generic medication, which is great. You can get it at CVS, at Walgreens. That's not a big deal. But when you actually have to take something more potent that, let's just say they can't control you, let's just say in hypertension, you have to take a different medication that is branded. That's when you need that extra help, which is independent pharmacy are your best friends at that point.
Now, do you own other pharmacies
We're partners in pharmacies, other pharmacies.
in this vicinity, in this area?
And not in this vicinity. So when we were looking, they actually said, hey, Vera, go find a place for a pharmacy. I've been a resident of Alpharetta for a long time, and I said, I know where we're going. So I really, right away, I just didn't have to think twice about it because, you know, it's funny because growing up here, my kids growing up in the area, you interact with all the families, and they're always like, what is it that you do? Like, when are you coming to help us over here? So it's nice that they're interested and they're wanting to see something like this coming to the area. So.
And I'm just curious, there used to be, I believe it was an independent pharmacy across from CVS there on Jones Bridge, near State Bridge. I don't know if that still exists, but I was just curious if you were aware of that pharmacy.
Most independent pharmacy normally don't if they don't have something to grind on, they're pretty hard to survive just because of the insurance. So you will see a lot of independent pharmacy closing down because they can sustain themselves. And this is where we come a little bit different because we do have the resources to go ahead and provide that for the patient and then stay in business. So we kind of set ourselves apart as a business to help patient, but also provide a customer service for the community and the patient that most independent pharmacy, even then, you know, it's a tough industry to be in for sure. You have to really know and find a niche to help that particular patient. And this is where we come in. That's why the name of the company is Branded Med RX. You know, we focus on branded medications. And that kind of, sets us apart in the industry.
Okay. Any other questions? Councilman Will, then Councilman Mitchell.
I've got several questions. Your pharmacy is actually going to fill prescriptions.
I'm sorry?
You're going to fill prescriptions?
Yes, sir.
Correct.
One of the statements you made was that you work with the patients to change prescriptions.
No.
That is a statement you made.
Let me rephrase that. So a lot of times a patient coming into the pharmacy, let's just say you go to us to get a particular medication, XYZ, okay? So the way that it works is normally it has to be processed through your insurance. So let's just say your insurance doesn't cover that medication. If you go to a big retail chain pharmacy, you're done. You will not get your medication because your insurance didn't cover it. So at that point, you as a patient, you have to go back to your physician, and either the physician had to change into something else, or sometimes the physician didn't even know that you didn't get your medication. So from a pharmacy perspective, what we do as an independent pharmacy, we actually work with you, we reach out to you, primary care or your physician, and ask, hey, you know what, this patient specifically cannot get that medication, the insurance completely denied. But in the same, if you will, category of medication, there's multiple choices for you to take that medication that allow you to stay in compliance. Just because your physician's, the last thing he wants is if you have high hypertension, you have to lower it down.
I'm going to challenge the fact that you're saying that people that have hypertension are getting prescribed medications and aren't covered by insurance. And I'm also going to challenge the fact that you said that you can get your medications cheaper than, say, CVS.
I can get it cheaper for two reasons. As an independent pharmacy owner, I'm buying from a distributor at one price, okay? So when I buy it at that price, let's just say it's a $500 medication, okay, and your insurance covers that $500, and I might just charge you $5 because I can do that. I'm an owner. I can.
How can you charge $5 and stay in business?
Because I can as an owner. So as an owner, I can go ahead and say, you know what? The insurance is covering this medication, so your copay is at $5. When you go to any other big chain retail pharmacy, they can't do that because the prices are mandated by corporate. So they can't bring the cost down for you, period. That's a standard process of medication.
And you find that most of the patients that fill prescriptions do it from 9 to 5 and don't get them on the weekends?
Say that again?
You found that most of your patients only pick up prescriptions between 9 and 5 and not really half of the weekend?
No, it's more of a standard retail process of 9 to 5. So when you're applying for pharmacy, that's what I was saying. We're not like a hospital pharmacy, you know. We're a retail pharmacy. So from the retail pharmacy, from the NCPDP, which is the Board of Pharmacy, there's specific criteria that we have to be open. So I mean, if I can open all through the night, great. But you know, it's from 9 to 5 I'll be open.
We do have Saturday also.
So you will be open after 5, or you're closing at 5 and you're
9 to 5 is the time that retail independent pharmacy will be open. And that goes for, I mean, we have about thousands of pharmacies across the nation, so that's the standard for most independent pharmacy time-wise.
Who do you think your average client is?
The average client that we work, I think, is that patient in the community that can get their medication at their CVS or their Walgreens or their Kroger.
So your average client cannot get a medication at CVS?
Correct.
I don't understand who that would be then. Who is that client?
So in other words, if you're taking a medication that is a branded medication, so it's not generic. So I don't know if you're familiar with generic and branded.
20 years in health insurance, I understand.
Okay, yeah, so if you're a patient that, you know, can't get a generic medication, if you're most likely taking a branded medication, the likelihood for you to get it, if your insurance doesn't cover, there has to be another process to help you with that particular medication. And the majority of the time is because you might need a authorization from your physician. Well, guess what? Kroger is not going to do that for you. You need to have, it requires time. It requires 30 minutes from the office to do that. It requires 30 minutes from the physician to actually work with some medical assistant to help you get that medication. Because you and that medication, not because the physician wants to just give you that medication, you and that medication because he knows that's what's best for you. And if your insurance doesn't cover or they're not contracted with CVS, they might be just contracted with Walgreens or they might be contracted with somebody else, you won't be able to get it. So there has to be another way for you to get that medication.
What other types of products and services are you selling in there?
Say that again?
What other types of products and services will you be offering in the pharmacy? Or
We
is it just prescriptions?
We just focus on retail,
Just
yeah,
prescriptions.
prescriptions only, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
All right. So retail pharmacy, so will you have basic Band-Aids and things like that throughout the thing? So I'm trying to understand. So if you were a hardware store, you're kind of like the True Value model. Like Urban Hardware is kind of like a True Value. They have buying power because they're involved with this larger group that can buy in a larger volume. Is that right? Like Branded X has thousands of different pharmacies that are all privately owned, but they can buy in larger groups. Is that right?
You can buy through the co-ops.
Yeah, you still buy empowered. Yes, you still can
Okay,
buy
so that's how you get lower rates on your,
Right,
because you
right.
can buy them in
You still
bulk.
have to have buy power. That's correct.
But
Okay.
many times it is that extra step of looking to see if there's a coupon out there.
Right,
The Kroger, the CVS, the Walgreens, they're not going to do that.
right, because they're too busy.
That's
Yeah.
huge in the pharmacy medication world.
That in time.
So-
Time is important. So you go and I'm challenge you to go to any CVS, Kroger, and get your medication. The average wait for you 45 minutes. That's the average, and that's because they might not have it in stock. Where I can have that product in stock and process that a lot quicker for you.
We had an experience here where we switched to a different, and I'm not going to name the chain. We switched to another pharmacy, and because they couldn't do 90-day, and our medical insurance wouldn't allow it. They were so busy. The pharmacists were so busy. It was a nightmare. And actually, they switched to medication, and this particular pharmacy no longer carried that particular medication that my doctor carried, that my doctor prescribed, and it was a nightmare. I couldn't get it forever, and I had to go back to the doctor and get another one and all that. And so I hear what you're saying and stuff, and I grew up with a small local pharmacy, and so I get the Sunday off. I really do, because you've only got so many. Will you be hiring like Georgia graduates, the pharmacy school over there? Is that what you do?
Correct.
Okay, so, yeah, I'd encourage that, being a Georgia graduate. So, all right, well, I wish you well, and thank you for locating here in Alpharetta, and wish the best for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Dorito.
Thank you, Marion. Thank you for your presentation and considering coming to Alpharetta. Just a few questions. With respect to, you're probably aware Georgia passed the medical cannabis law, and there's a process of so many locations around the state. You ever anticipate distributing medical cannabis oil through this pharmacy?
No.
Okay. The mayor asked you about if you're involved in any other pharmacies. You said you are partners in, I guess, several others. Are you silent partners? Are you active participants? And is that all in Georgia, or how many locations, pharmacies are we talking about?
That's a good question. Actually, when I came to the U.S., just to kind of give you a background of why I started pharmacies is, when my father, he had a heart condition, and I had he was taking a medication, and he was taking a branded medication, not a generic. But on that process, he got switched, and that provoked him to basically had a heart failure, which he didn't come back. He didn't recover. So I told myself, if I can help patients, stay in their medication, and that is branding, we can help them. And that's been my mission since day one. So, but to your question, I do have other partners here in Georgia who we have about 5 pharmacies, one in Union, Little Lordburn, small communities. where we have an outstanding customer service and reached by community. And
And are they active? I mean, they're.
absolutely, yeah. So yeah, absolutely. We definitely active in a day to day. I mean, I used to work in this field from 15 years ago, so I'm very familiar with the process of all the pharmacies.
So I'm assuming, just by your comments, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're both partners in the same pharmacies, or?
Correct.
Okay. And just one more question, are either of you licensed, registered pharmacists?
My partners are. Yes. And on purpose. I was going to school, medical school, in where I'm from. I was going to be a cardiology surgeon.
So that's interesting. You're
Yeah.
not licensed pharmacists, but you're operating pharmacies.
Good question. Operating, I do the business development. I don't operate. You have to have a pharmacist to operate the pharmacy.
In a pharmacy, you always have to have a pharmacist in charge.
No,
there at all
that's why I'm
times.
asking the question. I assumed one of you was a pharmacist.
Our partner
Yeah,
is.
our partner handle that.
Partner is. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Councilman Will.
Will your partner, the pharmacist, actually be on location during
Correct.
while you're working out?
Yes. Yes. It's mandatory by law to have a pharmacy in charge and partner. Yeah.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you very much. Councilman Dorito?
I'm sorry, Mayor, I don't know if it's for the applicant or for Mr. Woodman. I want to ask about,
Well, why don't you ask it to the applicant since they're here, and we'll see if they can answer.
would you I'll ask the question, and Mr. Woodman might want to comment on this in case he doesn't agree with this. The one condition, let me get to it, hold on a minute. I just hit out of the staff report, here we go. Where it talks about, Mr. Woodman added, shall be no tobacco products. Would you be opposed to including in that electronic cigarettes or any vapor? I don't know what the proper term is for.
Not at all.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Woodman. I don't know if that's something we could kind of expand upon. Just so it includes all. If you don't mind. Yeah. Let's let these people sit down. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you for all your questions.
I'm just trying to include all kind of, there's electronic cigarettes today and vapor. I don't know them because I don't use them, but all sorts of, I guess, nicotine-related products, I guess, would be.
We could certainly add that to the last sentence in condition number 3. Maybe there shall be no tobacco products or products that contain nicotine.
Nicotine. Yeah. Thank you.
Anything else from council? Thank you, Mr. Woodman. Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards?
We do not, Mr. Mayor.
However, if anyone would like to come forward and speak on this, now's your chance. Seeing no one, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Excuse me, I'd offer a motion tonight to approve CU-23-03 Branded Med RX/4150 Old Milton Parkway, subject to the 7 conditions, with an addition to number 3 to include and/or any nicotine products.
Second.
So we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Merkel to approve CU-23-03 as outlined in the motion by Mayor Pro Tem, and a second by Councilman Dorito. Any discussion? Councilman Will.
I unfortunately find it very hard to believe most of what I heard tonight. I don't believe that a small pharmacy has better buying power than CVS, which is a multi-billion-dollar corporation. I don't believe that they carry every medication that CVS doesn't have, and they can have it in less than 45 minutes. I don't believe they can sell prescriptions for $5 because they're the owner. Almost nothing I heard, I believe. And for that reason, I don't understand how we can support this.
Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, I have one. I'm sorry. I was digesting the change that was suggested and would be remiss if I didn't point out that products containing nicotine could include products that are intended to help individuals quit smoking, which frequently are sold at pharmacies. So to the extent that you don't want to preclude them from selling anti-smoking type products, I would suggest amending that condition further. I can help with that, or you can come up with something on your own, whatever.
I will certainly amend that to say, with the exception of products designed I don't know how many.
To assist individuals to quit smoking.
There you go. Can we just use that? Ms. Shapiro, all right, done.
I'll accept you.
Is everyone clear on the motion? Okay. And I don't have a tremendous amount of experience in the insurance industry or certainly in the pharmacy industry. I do know, I Googled, there's a Lily's Pharmacy is the pharmacy that I was thinking of, so it's not too far from your location. So I do know they exist. And I have had experience with CVS where a drug, I know you can get generics, you can get them in multiple different locations at a reasonable price, and they wanted to charge me $500 one time. So I know that there are ways to get more cost-effective, the same drugs than CVS, because I think they just didn't want to sell it because the margin was so low at what the market demanded. But that being said, I'm fine with it. I think, wish you the best of luck. If you can succeed, God bless you. That being said, all those in favor of the motion as outlined by Mayor Pro Tem, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote no. And it does pass 6-1. Congratulations. So we'll move on to the new business portion of tonight's meeting. And I'll note once again that the first item that was listed in the printed agenda has been deferred until August 21st. So we'll start with item B on the printed agenda, and that is the request for proposal 23-115, Cumberland Landscape Group, LLC, Morgan Rogers.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Unfortunately, tonight I've got an agenda items that is a little on the trashy side. What I'm asking for tonight is consideration to award RFP 23-115 to Cumberland Landscape Group for contract to remove all the trash from the trash receptacles in downtown Alpharetta. Currently, we have a vendor that does it 5 days a week. This contract will go to 7 days a week, so there'll be one pool by this company each day of the week. And of course, as it is now, our staff would supplement that. We all know that one pool on a busy Saturday or a busy Sunday is not enough, and we would supplement that with staff that we have in place. The total contract would be for $71,722. That includes every day of the week throughout the year, except for 2 holidays, I think it's Christmas and Thanksgiving, as well as a quarterly cleaning of all the trash cans and the liners. I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have about this bid.
Questions for Mr. Rogers? Thank you, sir. Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards on this item?
We do not, Mr. Mayor.
However, if anyone would like to come forward, now's your chance. Seeing no one, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that council approve the award of RFP 23-115 to Cumberland Landscape Group, LLC, in an amount not to exceed $83,122, and to authorize the mayor to execute all necessary documents.
Have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a motion by Councilman Hypes, a second by Councilman Dorito, and that was for the RFP 23-115, as outlined in the motion by Councilman Hypes. Any discussion? Councilman Hypes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to commend Director Rogers and his department. They've been very proactive on keeping Alpharetta beautiful in our downtown. We've built one of the best downtowns there is, and it's getting used. And one of the places you can find it that it's getting used is at 12 o'clock at midnight. Some of the trash cans that would be near the water fountain and some other places. And they've been monitoring that on a regular basis and being proactive about keeping the trash cans empty and looking nice. And so I commend Director Rogers for bringing this forward and keeping our city beautiful.
Any other discussion? Well done, sir. I was going to wait until Mayor Pro Tem showed back up, but I see no reason to delay, so, pardon? Mayor Pro Tem, I was just about to call for the vote, and we heard the door close, so I thought I'd wait.
Thank you, sir.
You're quite welcome.
The vote is whether or not you want to keep Alpharetta beautiful.
I got this.
We can either be clean or we can be trashy. Vote yes if you want us to be clean. Vote no if you want to be trashy. And one person does want to be trashy. So that does pass 6-1. And we'll move on to the next item under new business, which is the purchase approval for 2 pickup trucks from Allen Vigil Ford. Director Rogers, you once again have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We are asking tonight for consideration of approval of two 2024 Ford F-150s from the Allen Visual Ford under the state government contract to replace a 2008 and a 2009 model. Both have reached their replacement criteria for both age and mileage. And we were asking for that in the amount of, make sure I get it right, $100,792. Be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from council? Councilman Will.
Hey, Morgan.
Bill?
This is going to be a weird question, but I actually went to their website, and they don't even have any of these available. What's the delivery time on these 2 vehicles?
The expected delivery is about a year from now.
So they have plenty of 2023s in stock. Why don't we not just get those that are brand new?
I can't answer that because that's part of the state contract calls for us to get news 2024. So I can't. I don't have the information to answer that question. I apologize.
Mr. Lagerbloom?
It's a really good question, and I don't know the answer. But it's an answer worth getting before we move forward with an expenditure that we may be able to take delivery quicker. I don't know the answer.
I always question if we need them so badly, why are we waiting a year to get them when we can get them today and potentially get it cheaper because it's still brand new, but it's a 2023.
Really good point. I don't have an answer.
Clearly, we don't have an answer, so we can just table this item. But I mean, I can't speak to this one. I have no idea. But I know at times we may not need a vehicle until next year, but we know we have to order it now. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just saying that.
Then the question is, do we need the vehicles now, or are we good waiting a year?
Well, the vehicles that we have are still running. The 2 that we're replacing are still running, so it's not to the point where we've got to have these vehicles to replace it. It's just part of the replacement cycle. We can certainly, it's not going to hurt anything to table this matter and ask that same question and then come back with the results of that answer.
I'm not hardcore on this one, guys. I'm just asking a general question.
No, it's a good question. I don't know the answer either, but I know there are instances where but that's more typically a major equipment, I think, with tractors or, moving equipment. But
why don't we just defer until August the 7th? I mean, that's 2 weeks is not going to kill us, and we'll be able to answer your question, and then you can take action at your next meeting.
Ms. Eswine, is that the best way to proceed?
Okay.
Just defer? Until when?
August 7th.
Do we have a motion to defer until August?
So moved.
Have a
Motion to defer.
motion by Mayor Pro Tem, second by Councilman Will. Any discussion? Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards?
We do not, Mr. Mayor.
Seeing no public comment, we'll close public comment. All those in favor of the motion, please vote yes, otherwise vote accordingly. There's always one.
Jason's didn't go through.
I had my mic on. It wouldn't register my vote when the mic was on. That's what's the issue. It does pass unanimously. So that'll wrap up the new business portion of tonight's meeting. If there's anyone, do we have any public comment cards?
We do not, Mr. Mayor.
However, if there's anyone here who would like to take advantage of public comment, now's your chance. Seeing no one, we'll close public comment. Any reports this evening? Seeing no reports. Mr. Lagerbloom? Oh, Councilman Binder has a report.
I would be remiss. Public Works did a fantastic job this week. I mean, I don't know, for me, that storm came out of nowhere. The response before, we got back up in the morning. Pete said he had it handled. Tremendous job to your crew. Thank you so much.
And I'll just note for the record that we lost a valued city employee last week. One of our police officers passed away. There'll be a celebration of life. What's the date on that? Monday the 31st at First United Methodist here in Alpharetta. So please keep his family in your prayers. That being said, I believe we do have an executive session this evening.
We do, Mr. Mayor, and it's going to cover all three topics that we have eligible for executive session, so personnel, real estate, and litigation.
And do you anticipate coming back out and having any action?
I don't anticipate any action after the executive session.
Okay. So do I have a motion to recess into executive session? Have
Second.
Motion by Will, second by Mitchell. All those in favor, please vote yes. And it does pass unanimously, so we'll recess into executive session and be back shortly.
Motion to adjourn.
Adjourn?
Oh.
Reconvene. First we reconvene.
Motion to reconvene.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Will and a second by Mayor Pro Tem to reconvene the meeting. All those in favor, please vote yes. And it is unanimous. Do we have a
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion by Councilman Mitchell to adjourn. We have a second by Councilman Will. All those in favor of adjourning this meeting, please vote yes.